Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you. Clearly I've plateaued, but that's okay.
Hey everyone, what's happening? Lex back today with another Brawl Stars video, and today we have a very special guest, the voice actor for Karl in Brawl Stars, Will Arden. And wait, before you say anything, I have a question for you. Do the rocks really speak to you? And if so, what are they saying?
Geology rocks!
So Will, you actually like to go by Josh, so we will hence refer to you as Josh. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Josh.
Well, yes, other than the confusion that I have, my stage name is Joshua Graham, so that is what I go by in the business. And also another thing, when you Google Joshua Graham, there's a very popular character online, so it's a whole bunch of confusion. But other than that, I've been a voice actor for 10 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm getting old, turning old. But full-time, probably like 5-6 years. And yeah, I just really kind of decided to make that turn in my life and dedicate everything to that. Otherwise, pretty normal guy, like video games, like movies, like reading.
You do like video games. Okay, well then a lot of people are
Yes.
curious. Have you played Brawl Stars?
I haven't played in a while. So when I ended up doing this, I was playing the game during the pandemic. I got a new phone, never really uploaded it back. So I haven't played in such a long time. So I know there's a ton of changes that have happened in the game and lots of new things. But I did play at one point, haven't played in a while.
So were you playing before you did this gig?
No, I had heard of Brawl Stars, so I'm sure we'll get into it, I guess, at some point. But, it was kind of like secretive to what this was. I didn't know what it was, this job, until I booked the role. And then I'm like, oh my God, I know Brawl Stars. But I had never played it. So I started playing after I did the character.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Did you unlock Karl?
I did not unlock
Oh, what? Okay, so I do have a bunch of questions from the audience, but first, before we get to that, I'm curious, whenever you went in to do Karl's voice acting, how did they describe Karl to you? Usually they give you like a little blurb. What'd they say?
If I remember correctly, like the basic gist of it was that he was like a nerd. And I don't even remember if it had mentioned like if he was kind of like, because I think Karl is part robot kind of thing. So I don't even think I had that in mind, but it was heavy on nerd. And Eddie Deason, I don't know if you're familiar with who this guy is. So if you type his name in on Google or YouTube, once you hear him speak, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. He was like the prototypical nerd character in every 80s movie.
Hi, I'm actor Eddie Deason, aka the Know-It-All.
If you know the Polar Express movie,
It's like, what are you doing on this train? Oh my God, you get the ticket for the Polar Express.
Hey you, yeah, you. Do you know what kind of train this is?
and so that was kind of how I entered into it, like that, the nasally nerd sounding voice. And I don't know if you know Mad TV. I could be dating myself to a lot of people, but there's a show called Mad TV. Jim Carrey played a character called Fire Marshal Bill, and he had like a cadence where he's like,
Let me show you something.
Let me show you something!
I kind of put these two together, threw in a lisp, and that's how kind of Karl became.
So if you've been doing this for 10 years, that's quite a
Yeah.
while. How in the world did you get into voice acting? What inspired you to do what you do?
Oh man, this might have to be a 2-part miniseries. I had such a long, weird journey. When I was in high school, I kind of was like a start of YouTube, at the dawn of YouTube. So this would have been 2006. There were like pranksters on YouTube. In my youth, I was kind of always, I wouldn't say I was the class clown, but I always liked to make people laugh and do little voices and stuff. But anyway, with the dawn of YouTube, all these like guys, like Ed Bassmaster was one of them.
Would you look at that?
Yeah, there's a few more blemishes on the card.
Oh my gosh, just look at it.
But either way, there were these channels that kind of got me like, ooh, I want to try and do this character or do this voice. And I kind of got into knowing my range as a voice actor via YouTube many, many years ago. And then, yeah, from that, I went and I did an open mic and met a lady there who had an agent. She's like, you're really, funny and you have these like weird kooky voices. So I had this interview at an agency and I got signed to an agent. And that was 10-ish years ago. And through that time, I've had different agents and ups and downs, but that was kind of the short form of how so no direct line. I never really grew up wanting to be a voice actor. It was just something I kind of like happened upon. If it wasn't for YouTube, I would never even have had the thought.
Okay, well then this begs the question, do you have a YouTube channel?
Okay. I have social media, but I don't use social media to prop my like voiceover career. So recently I did create a YouTube channel, brand new, spanking brand new. And I did post 2 Brawl Star videos to kind of prove I said who I was saying I was. And I have another YouTube that I just do like product reviews. Like I do like unboxings. Well, we could plug them in if people really want to watch them, but yeah.
Stay tuned for the secret unboxing channel. We'll
Yes.
get there. Have you ever had a voice acting gig that's kind of like a little strange or interesting?
Oh man, I feel like I've had every experience you could have. People can maybe appreciate or not appreciate this, the voice of the life of a voice actor. I had a job where I had to talk about dirt once, and literally for hours a day I was reading about dirt and fertilizer and different companies that create these things and the effects they have. And, when you start out as a voice actor, some people get very lucky. Very, very lucky, and they'd start off immediately doing cool things. But like my beginning journey, I did a lot of stuff that was kind of like on the level of let's talk about rare types of fertilizers from overseas. So that was
just enthralling stuff, right?
Oh man, it was tough, and I like it was as much as I love reading. There's only so much you can read about fertilizer. So another thing when it comes to like being a performer, period, whether you're a voice actor or an actor, when you start, you don't really have a lot to like cool to talk about. So you have your friends are like, well, what do you do? What do you do? I'm like, well, I'm a voice actor. Like, oh, cool. What have I heard you in? I'm like, absolutely nothing, because I'm doing like a whiteboard video in the beginning of my life. It was an interesting journey in the beginning. You really gotta want it to continue.
So what else you got coming up in the future here? Anything exciting coming up?
Yeah, the only other game that I've done. This is gonna be the other one coming out on 27th, 28th. A My Little Pony game. I'm gonna be voicing Sprout.
Why won't you ever stop?
And in terms of any shows, like I don't have any shows coming out in the near moment.
All right, so are you ready for some interesting questions? We'll just go with interesting from the fans.
Let's go. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I'm ready. We'll see.
Aaron wants to know, how do you feel about being one of the most hated voices in Brawl Stars?
At first, I was like, oh, man. Ooh, because I had so much fun. I thought he was such a fun character. But like after a while, I realized like, look, that could be a very annoying character on repeat playing a game. So I let it go, and I started to have some fun reading the comments, and I watched like videos of like a rap remix of Karl, and I got a kick out of it. Like at the end of the day, I think there's like a silver lining. Like he is supposed to be like the annoying nerd. So if I'm annoying people, I did my job.
Missy asks, maybe an obvious question, but have you ever been into geology? And also, can you play instruments?
I don't know if I've been into geology specifically, like rocks, but I do love, shiny objects. I don't know what that means. And instruments, I wouldn't say I play at a high level. Back in the day, I used to play clarinet and play guitar. So I did play those two. Yeah.
A-Man wants to know, if you were to add a voice line to Karl, what would it be?
Oh, man. That is a good one. My favorite thing about Karl is kind of his like victory lines. So it's hard. I don't want to say anything like mean, but it would definitely be along those lines, because those are my favorite ones. Like,
Will you ever learn? Highly doubtful.
I apologize, I don't have anything ready to go for that one, buddy. But if it would be in the realm, it would be one of those like victory lines where he's like,
I guess you've plateaued.
it'd be something along those lines where he has like a little insult.
All right, so Amit wants to know, what's your favorite voice line of his, and were any of the voice lines improvised?
To kind of piggyback off what I was saying, a lot of the lines that I love are kind of like,
Evolution, it must have passed you by.
I love those because it's such a juxtaposition to what a nerd is. He's kind of like, ha 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 ha. In terms of improv, probably the most annoying part of Karl is like, a lot of that was improv. But when it came to the lines, Martin kind of just let me perform it as I wanted. So to me, I didn't really improv any lines, but the performance and how I delivered the lines was kind of how I saw them. But yeah, most of the cackling and like weird noises were all improv.
Did he just say, hey, just laugh really crazily?
Yeah, well, when I first gave him the like kind of thing, he cracked him up, and then he's like, okay, make it longer, throw some, and then I did this like weird long one, and that ended up obviously in the game. But yeah, he just kind of let me go. It was a really fun session. Sometimes it's tough when you get a gig, you don't have a lot of freedom, and I feel Martin kind of gives a lot of freedom, and yeah, he made it really fun.
Snug Pig wants to know, what's been your favorite voice acting gig that you've done so far?
I'll plug one of my very first things. I did like an audio drama. I don't know, it was like a whole series of things, but it's via podcast, and it was really fun. It was called Magus Elgar. That was really fun. Brawl Stars was super fun. I'm in the Paw Patrol movie.
Nice.
Paw Patrol movie. When the dogs are like getting ready to launch out to do their missions, I'm like the computer headquarter voice.
Liberty, ready for launch.
And then there's a show on Netflix that I do that was really fun called Go Dog Go, and I'll just leave it at that.
Marwin says, if you had to choose a different brawler to voice over, who would it be?
There's so many cool ones. I think Bull's fun, Crow's, but if I had to, is it Colt?
Mm-hmm.
If I could voice him, I would definitely like try to voice him because he's like a cowboy. I would try to give him like a real Western twang, kind of like the Dodge Ram commercials.
Guts, glory, Ram.
Pam wants to know, how did you make the crazy voice?
If it's in regards to the Karl voice as a whole, I think I kind of explained it. I kind of mishmashed the Eddie D's in, the Fire Marshal Bill with a lisp. But if it's in regards to that specific, like, line, I have no idea. Like I said, Martin just is like getting a kick out of me making these ridiculous sounds. I just kind of like made it like I was electrocuting myself. I mean, if Karl was electrocuted, what sound would he make? And that was where that really long one came out.
Alex wants to know, how many auditions do you send in on average every day?
Oh, man. That ranges. Like, this is such a tough business because some days you're like super busy and then some days you have nothing going on. If I were to guess in terms of like auditions a week of what I would send, I really probably send like maybe between 5 and 7 auditions a week, like solid ones, you know?
The Brawl nerd wants to know, in the least offensive way possible, are you as much of a nerd geek as Karl is? And if so, do you think that's why you were cast/applied to him?
I don't know. Like, what is a nerd these days? I feel, again,
I think a nerd's kind of a cool thing these days.
Yeah, these days, like back in my day, you know, I think I would classify myself as a nerd. I love fantasy, love sci-fi, I love lots of stuff that used to be considered nerds. Being a video game person used to be considered a nerd, and now like gaming is huge, and that's not nerdish at all. So I guess at the end of the day, probably I'm a nerd.
Nice.
I would say I'm a nerd.
We got a bunch of questions here from Chapita. I'm just going to read them off. You pick which ones you'd like to answer. What's the best part of your job? Do you plan on working on other games? How can people support you economically? What are your hobbies? Well, there's a lot of questions here.
For me, the best part of my job is when you have the opportunity to play characters that are outside of yourself. It's a very freeing medium. Voiceover is a very freeing medium where you get to play a hero, a nerd, a villain, just your regular, you know, everyday person. It can be a very tough job and a taxing job, but it's very rewarding when you get to do those kind of characters that are outside of yourself. And when it comes to, the video games, I've done two games in total, so this is one of them. And I would love to do more if the opportunities arise. Like, I'm always open if it's something that I can breathe life into, for sure. I'd love to do more video games. Hobbies. Since I started this career of my hobbies, I don't do much anymore because I really tried to focus to be successful here. But I like reading books. I don't play as much sports as I used to, but I love sports, music, movies. I love animation. Big fan of Studio Ghibli. Or Ghibli, however some people pronounce it. Those would be my hobbies. Like, I think everybody's hobbies. I don't have anything super interesting when it comes to that.
So what are some of your favorite video games to play?
Oh, man. So when it comes to video games, I grew up kind of a generation behind when it comes to systems because my family didn't have a ton of money. So I was always a system behind. And again, I'm so old. I've been around with all the systems almost. But my very first system, loved Sonic. But more recently, I love like role-playing games like RPGs, MMOs. Knights of the Old Republic, Jade Empire are two of my favorites. I love the Mass Effect. I used to play World of Warcraft, Guild Wars. I love Uncharted. Yeah, I'm just like a big fan of the art of video games.
Blaze has a question. What's your favorite gemstone?
I like emeralds. I like opals. Peridot. Is it peridot? You don't pronounce the T. It's not peridot.
Peridot.
And sapphires are nice as well. I'm fancy. What can I say?
He's fancy, guys.
Yeah, he's fancy.
What else can I ask you besides the one thing that everybody loves? Would you mind doing some of Karl's voice lines for us? I mean, you've already showed us some.
Sure. Well, I'll go.
Karl is my name. Geology is my game.
And I'll apologize for the ridiculous face I have to make. And this. I don't know what this is. It just helps sometimes. So.
Evolution, it must have passed you by. Will you ever learn? Highly doubtful. The rocks speak to me. Geology rocks. Smoldering boulder.
And one of my other favorite ones where I yell, it's like,
suboptimal performance.
I love that one.
I'm eroding. Calculating awesomeness levels. I don't lava this. Geology rocks. I'm detecting seismic activity. The rocks speak to me. So much ignorance. So little time. Let's uncover the mystery of history. Karl is my name. Geology is my game. Triangulation rocks the nation.
So Joshua, where can we find you online? I know you really into social media. It's all you do all day long.
All day.
So tell us where we can find you so we can motivate you, to be a little bit more active.
I do have a Twitter. Again, Joshua Graham. I think it's at JDUBGV. That is my Twitter. Again, I am not a big social media person. I got to work on it. I really got to work on it. But I'm going to start today. And then I did create a YouTube video that I hope to pump out more of the stuff that I've done in the past and like interact and make some videos. I did put a couple Brawl Star videos on it, and that YouTube channel is called Joshua Graham, VA for like voice actor.
So he's got 7 subscribers currently, guys.
Yeah.
You know what you need to do. You need to go fix that. You
Yes.
need to make that number a lot more than it is. He's already got some Brawl Star stuff up on there. Go check it out. Joshua, thank you so much for spending some time with us, letting us get to know you, and
you so much.
For telling us how much geology actually rocks.
I do what I can to spread the word, and thank you so much, Lex. Thanks for having me on here, and hello to everybody. And I'm glad you either love or hate Karl. Either one, I'm happy for both. So
Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, until next time, we'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace out.